Well, good morning. I am so happy to be here today with the Taylors. Um, it is Pastor Levi and Pastor Gwen Taylor, and with Marriage God's Way. And we're gonna go. Before we get started, I do have to read something and get you guys to agree to it before we go. And it's just simply saying that I agree to participate in this interview with Holly McNeil Wilkins by my own choice. And I am aware and agree that this information will be for a public document. I am aware and agree that I will not now nor in the future receive compensation for this information. Should Holly McNeil Wilkins choose to use this information for future use, I give permission and agree that I will not receive compensation for its use. I freely provide this information for educational and edification usage. Are you all okay?
I agree.
You agree?
Okay. And one other thing is I need to know, do you all give permission for me to share the video? Okay. All right. Because I wanted to make sure, I try not to just arbitrarily assume that people are okay with me sharing stuff. So yeah. Okay. Pastor Gwen, I sent you kind of a list because I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and send them a little bit so they won't get ambushed. And so
well, yeah, if we're not prepared at 37 years to talk about marriage,
okay.
we missed the boat.
And if you guys, hold on, if y'all will hold on 1 second, I'm gonna pause the recording.
Okay.
And take this background off. Okay. All righty. So pretty much I'm gonna ask the questions.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna allow y'all to talk. And I'm gonna take notes. Okay. And I'm telling you, I am so excited about this. I have been very excited about this interview. So okay. So either one of you all, if you don't mind, can you please open up in prayer first before we get going?
Sure. Father, thank you. Thank you for, first of all, you being God. We appreciate, we adore, we, Father God, are just so deeply in love with the fact that you are deeply in love with us. So thank you for this day. We declare the blessing of our life. And this time we pray for Minister Holly, God. She takes this opportunity, Father God, to just open the door and a window for the edification of marriage. We give you glory for her life. We give you glory for this assignment. And we praise you now. Thank you for the years you've given each of us, God. Thank you for our marriage, and thank you for the marriages. But I just want to speak quickly to the marriages of those that may hear, that may, Father God, just in the sense of needing direction, God. Help them to know that marriage is your idea, and your word is the best basis for living a married life. And the marriage really is meant to celebrate you, the giver of such a good and perfect gift. We thank you now. We bless you for this time. We speak the blessing on every marriage. We speak healing where there's brokenness, God. We speak deliverance, God, where there's strongholds of bondage, God. We speak prosperity. Marriage truly is meant to be celebrated and not just tolerated. We thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay. So once again, we're here with the Taylors, and you all have been married for 37 years. Wait a minute, hold on. Can you turn up your volume because I can't hear you? I could hear him.
Turning yours up, doesn't
I can hear him fine, but I don't know why I can't hear you.
I'm just playing. Okay.
Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, how long?
37 years.
Wow. Okay. I did not realize it was 37. I was thinking 32. Woo. Okay. Way off.
We close to the 4 and the 0.
Yeah, do not shortchange us in a year, please.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I'm definitely excited to hear this because I did my parents while I was home for Father's Day, and they are coming up on 55. 55, yes.
Wow.
And August will be 55 years. And that was an interesting interview.
I'm sure a lot of experience.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. But they did not give me permission to record. They did not
using our stuff.
So I mean, they get, you know, of course I could use it, but they didn't give me permission to put the audio. They didn't.
Okay.
I didn't even record them. They were like, nope, we can talk, but yeah. So I was like, okay. You know, that's why I have to get permission, because everybody doesn't. You can't assume. So anyway, okay. So we have 5 topics that we're going to talk about today: forgiveness and reconciliation, due benevolence, communication, and dealing with just communication in general, and then dealing with strife, submitting to each other, and purity of marriage. And in that, we're talking about commitment, covenant, compassion, and covering. So I want to hear from both of you. And so we'll start with forgiveness and reconciliation. So just talk a little bit about that. So what I want you to do is talk to, like, me as a single woman who is waiting, and to say a new couple, or, you know, whatever. So all right, so we're talking about forgiveness and reconciliation. Okay.
Well, I guess I'll start. Both are extremely important. Forgiveness is actually, for me, a major part of marriages, because we're flawed and we make mistakes. And so you are going to, not to say that it's just an ongoing forgiveness. I got to forgive this. I got to forgive this. Got to forgive this kind of thing that they're going to be, you know, always messing up. But when they do, or when I do, forgiveness needs to be in place.
Okay.
Number one, God is the perfect person who forgives all our sins. And so when we mimic, or we use Hicks' example of forgiveness, because like God, the church is His bride. And so He forgave His bride and accepted His bride. And so the same thing for us. When we, in our marriage, we have to forgive each other. And so anybody that's contemplating marriage, you have to be ready to forgive and let go. Not to say that you are a doormat. We will never say that. But you have to be ready to open yourself up to be able to forgive each other and be reconciled.
Okay.
I think as we talk, and I don't want to I guess create an unnecessary bias, but we're Christians, so our marriage and our perspective of marriage is always going to be Christian, Christ-like. So for those who may struggle somewhat with forgiveness, they have to understand that, particularly as a Christian, this is particularly challenging in marriages, because as Christians, we are commanded to forgive. It is not an option. It is not something that, you know, we can choose to do or not do. We're told plainly that if we forgive not those who trespass against us, neither will our Heavenly Father forgive us our trespasses. So it's very clear for a Christian. But I want to be open to other marriages as well. We counsel marriages, premarital and both crisis, and I tell them up front, especially in premarital counseling, if you are not ready to forgive, wait.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I have them at the meeting where we talk, the session where we talk about forgiveness. I have them to face each other, and I have each one of them to repeat, I forgive you already. We get it out front, because here's the thing, as my wife said, we're flawed. You know, at our best, we sometimes overlook things. And at our worst, we can sometimes be very intentional about what we do. So if there's not forgiveness involved, then we create the environment in marriage that, okay, if you make me angry enough, if you do something bad enough, I walk. And so, particularly for a Christian, as we live our lives across the whole spectrum of Christian living, we're challenged, we're commanded to forgive. So even more even more higher is the requirement in Christian marriage. One of the closest of human relationships, I got to be willing to forgive. And if I'm not willing to forgive, I need to ask myself, am I prepared for marriage? Because marriage is leaving the kingdom of self to enter into the kingdom of matrimony, or the kingdom of God, which is holy matrimony. So I got to be willing to leave the kingdom of self and understand that, if I'm going to be selfish, which means I'm choose to forgive or not forgive, then I'm not ready for marriage. So, I guess I thank you for kind of opening with this one, because, we may spend more time in the other, but it's irrelevant. Personally in our marriage, and I'll share this personally in our marriage, one of the most attractive things about my wife and our ability to maintain our marriage relationship for these years and God keeping us is she chose to forgive me when I messed up. Okay. The book says, to the one who much is forgiven, that's the person who loves the most. And I can tell you, in a marriage relationship, when you have a heart that's tender and that's willing to forgive, the spouse can't help but sense an attraction to and for you, because they understand. Now, of course, once again, she said not being the doormat, but they understand the depth of their error.
Right.
And sometimes when we try to get even ourselves, we further cause friction, division. But to see, a woman of God who's willing to forgive a person for their error, unintentional and intentional. And to see that played out over my marriage, I think one of the greatest things I shared one time in the marriage seminar, was one evening I came home from somewhere, and I could hear her in the bedroom praying for me. I could hear that, and for what I had done and for how I was acting, I knew I didn't deserve that kind of concern and love. So we have to understand that forgiveness. It's required. The bottom line is, in a marriage relationship, there's going to be, one of the things that leads to the requirement for forgiveness. I'm sorry if I'm rattling on. Is conflict. There's going to be conflict in marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, we experience one of the simplest form of conflict almost. Well, right now we're not going through, but almost every Sunday, because we can't decide where we're going to go eat at. Yeah. I mean, it's a 20-minute discussion, and sometimes if we're not careful, it'll get heated over whether we're gonna have. Well, she loves Mexican food, so I'm almost all right. But I don't want Mexican food every Sunday.
It's a given.
So
Look, why are you even asking? You know I want Mexican food.
A given.
You don't want Mexican food? Tell me where you want to
Absolutely.
okay. But then we run the whole litany of I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that, and then so once again that can be a part of conflict, which may lead to a need to forgive, because if we're not careful, once again self kind of rises up. And even in our best intentions, I want to take her somewhere different. I want to, create a new experience, but I have to understand, I have to know how to manage that, and we need to know how to deal with that. We'll talk about communication later, but at the same time, if it gets to the point where we just can't decide, we come to a place of agreement. Oh yeah. Who is a culinary genius.
Always knows what I want to eat. I'm going to ask him.
And so, sometimes this thing can really get, there's a book, I believe the author's name is Samuel Eckridge. He wrote this book called Love and Respect. And in the book, he talks about what's called the crazy cycle. How sometimes, because a husband's true need from his wife is to feel respected, and a wife's true need from her husband is to be loved. So anytime any one of those components don't happen for the other, when he feels disrespected, he's going to react in a way that seems unloving to her. And so it creates this crazy cycle where they're on this merry-go-round, not knowing how to get off, when all he has to do is say, okay, wait a minute. I need to, even in a situation that causes forget, I need to be loving toward her, which will in turn lead her to respect. And so forgiveness is really huge, because once again, if we go into the marriage relationship with the thought of what we call, with our parachute already on, you haven't even taken your vows yet, and you got a parachute because you're ready to jump at the slide, and forgiveness is so powerful.
Yeah,
it's so powerful. In that, I believe there's a quote that says, "To err is human, to forgive is divine, but to persist is evil." So we have to choose to be forgiven. Now, let's be honest. Sometime in marriage, and I think this is one of my wife's biggest pet peeves as we counsel couples in crisis, is that they come up with this thing, talk about, irreconcilable differences.
Oh,
What is that?
what is that?
Anything can be
No such
reconciled.
thing.
There's
There's
no such thing.
no such
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Get past yourself
Yes.
and you can reconcile.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, here's the thing, and over the years we've seen everything from disagreements over personal bank accounts to how eggs were cooked to how often they went to each other's parents for the holiday. To
Yeah,
which way the toilet paper is on the roll. Do you have to pull it down or do you put stuff like that? And it stems from an unwillingness to forgive.
Yeah.
That's why the
Well,
differences are irreconcilable.
one of the things that you said earlier is we have to leave the kingdom of self
Yes.
and go into matrimony. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that goes right back to that.
Yeah.
It goes right back to that.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So once we settle the issue whether or not forgiveness is required or not, we can then move toward reconciliation, because until you forgive, you can't be reconciled. But here's the thing you have to understand, and I need to be careful with this. If reconciliation does not happen immediately, it does not give us the right to withhold forgiveness. Forgiveness is commanded.
Right.
It's required.
Right.
Up front. Now, it may take us some time to rebuild trust. It may take us some time to rebuild, the intimacy, the closeness.
Right.
But up front, I got to be able to man up or woman up and say, you know what you did hurt me. We have to be very careful.
Yeah.
This is how what you did made me feel.
Yeah.
And we need to be willing to forgive and release and move forward. Because if not, reconciliation will never happen. I mean, you can stay together.
Yes.
But once again, the cheaper the keeper mentality or staying for the kids or whatever. But marriage is meant to be celebrated, not just tolerated. So we have to choose to be reconciled. Now, okay. I think from our personal experience, is the relationship going to be the same? Maybe not. In most cases, no. I mean, but it can be better.
Yeah.
I think one thing we found is that even in dealing with conflict, which may lead to the need for forgiveness and ultimately reconciliation, is that conflict doesn't have to necessarily divide us. Conflict is an opportunity for us to complement each other.
Right.
And when I learn what she brings to the table, and when she values what I bring to the table, we're able to come to a good place, resolve the conflict,
and move on,
and move even closer. Because that's some things that people go without years without having an argument, but it's because they never encountered a situation in depth enough to be totally honest about it.
Yeah.
And so reconciliation is a beautiful thing. I think it allows us, number one, to face some stuff about ourselves that we may not have known. Spiritually, we have, according to the Word of God, the ministry of reconciliation, particularly in dealing. And here's can I? Okay. Here's the thing. I'm just going ahead and say it, because here's my problem. I have a problem with people who can reconcile. No, I have a problem with people who can reconcile with everybody else, but the person they're supposed to be closest to, with their life partner. I can saw, man, me and my homeboy can fall out over, the bowling match, because I feel like he cheated, man. I may not speak to him for 2 weeks or 3 months or whatever, but before long, me and him cool again. But here, my wife, puts a pair of my favorite socks in the washer, and I can't find one.
Now
and I'm mad at her for months. I mean, I got a scar for the rest of my. That's stupid.
Yeah,
that's unintelligent.
It doesn't make sense.
Don't look. This is pure, unadulterated marital stuff. So don't be trying to choose your words.
It's stupid.
You gotta say it how God look. When you say don't choose your words carefully, just say what you got to say. Because there are some folk who I'm really praying that there are gonna be some folk who see this and they are going to my desire and my hope behind this and how God gave it to me is that marriages will be saved. People who may not even know God
Mm-hmm.
will come to know Christ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, we in the church, we choose our words because that's
Sure.
not
Too careful.
Christ-like.
Mm-hmm. 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 Well,
No,
I
'cause
want to be mindful.
sometimes you just gotta,
Yeah.
you just gotta put it out there. I'm not saying,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna be
Yeah, off color and ugly. And,
exactly,
yeah.
but
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
just saying, however God give it to you, I want
Okay.
you to put it on out there because some folk who need to hear this
Mm-hmm.
need to hear it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no. But let's face it. Things happen intentionally, unintentionally in
Right.
marriage that hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
They're tough to overcome. But I should put the same amount of effort. I should put greater effort and energy into this relationship
More.
than I really am.
Yeah.
And the Bible gives us that priority in marriage at the very beginning. I mean, we don't get deep into the book about life experiences before God brings Eve to Adam, and He says, "Listen, now shall a man leave his mother and his father and cleave to his wife." He creates the priority up front that this relationship ought to have.
Yes.
So it's not that I disregard everything else.
Yes.
But it's that I establish the correct priority of this.
Yes.
So, when it comes to reconciliation, how can we dare have the ministry of reconciliation as part of our lives, but as it relates to others and bringing them to Christ, and as it relates to even our relationships with them and fellowship with them, and we can't have that kind of reconciliation here.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's some ugly things that may have happened in life. I mean, infidelity, indiscretion, breaches of trust. I understand all those. I know those things hurt deeply, and there's some deep emotional and some deep physical and spiritual scars from that stuff. But I can tell you, it can be overcome. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
When we as believers, and then there's people, number one, who just simply want the best of the highest form of human relationship there is. When we make up our minds, it's not all about me.
Yes.
Then forgiveness and reconciliation can happen.
Yes. Okay.
And you don't have to lose you in that in the transaction. So.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, as you said earlier, it's hard for people. It's easier for people to give advice. They can't receive their own advice. And I believe if they are able to receive their own advice, the relationship would be a whole lot better with whomever they're with. So, yeah, it's important. It's very important to adhere to the Word of God and what it's saying to us about marriage. So,
okay, all right, great. And I forgot before we begin, I forgot our base scriptures are in Genesis 2:18 through 25, and you alluded to that. And then the other one is Malachi 2:14 through 16, when God says, "I hate divorce." So, and it wasn't, I will be honest with you, as much as I've read the word and as many times I had read the Bible, it wasn't until I was going through my divorce that I even saw Malachi.
Okay.
I was like, where, God, did you just put this in the Bible? I was like, did you just put that in there? Why have
I got it? Come out.
Like, that before.
Right.
And in the Message translation, it simply says, it says it pure and simple. And so I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But neither here nor there. And so okay. I'm sorry. Do we anything? I'm sorry.
But I tell everybody, anything you could ever face or go through, it's in the Word.
It's in the Word.
It's in the Word. So if we just learn to go to the Word of God for whatever we're dealing with, even if you have to go to the glossary or index or whatever, concordance, thank you. If you have to go to the back of it and look up what you're dealing with, jealousy. Hey, whatever you're dealing with, it's in the Word.
It's in there.
It's in the Word.
In there. And I was like, oh, what? I really was like, God, when did you put that in? Look, when did you put that in there?
Yeah.
So
for believers, you already know it's in the Word. For those who are not believers, go to the Word of God. I
Sure.
promise you it'll heal your marriage.
Yes,
It's
definitely. Okay. Anything else on forgiveness and reconciliation?
Just quickly, it's not an admission that a wrong wasn't done. It's not allowing the other person to get off the hook. I love what Proverbs 20:22 says in New Living. It says, "Don't say I will get even for this wrong. Wait for the Lord to settle the matter." And we know what Romans says, right? Don't repay evil for evil.
Yeah.
Don't take revenge. Vengeance is mine. So why would you want to do something that belongs to God? Let God handle His work.
Yeah.
Our thing positionally is that we have to believe, number one, that God is for us, and we have to be willing to trust God to bend the heart of our spouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where fussing and nagging won't get it.
Yeah.
Stonewalling, silence treatment, all that stuff won't get it. We have to trust the hand of God to touch the heart of our mate when it comes to being willing to forgive, and that's extending forgiveness to them. So it's very possible.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about the easy stuff. Okay, I'm not talking about the easy stuff.
Yeah.
Even in those deep issues,
Yeah.
and sometimes repeated offenses.
Yeah.
The power of God to forgive is there, and it does work in marriages.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. The next one. Well, you know what? We'll jump down to communication. We'll go down, we'll jump down to communication because that kind of alludes to with the forgiveness and the reconciliation. You talked about that already, so I'm gonna let you guys talk about the importance of
of communicating
and good communication. So
yeah.
All right, go for it. Okay.
Yeah. Because I believe, oh boy, this is a real good one because we know how important communication is. Because one of my things is sometimes with him, I'm like, babe, I can't read your mind. But then he says, you should know by now. After 37 years, you should know. No,
No, I don't, babe.
I don't. I will never know unless you communicate that to me, because we are ever changing.
Yes.
Our likes change, our dislikes change, our foods change, everything changes, our body change, everything changes. I love you. Everything changes.
I wanted to be sure it wasn't me that you didn't like.
No.
So what you don't like? Okay, I'm sorry.
See. But anyway, we're ever changing creatures, and I just believe if you communicate to me what you don't like or what you do like, it would help me to serve you better. So it's important so that we're on the same page, so that we're understanding each other, and not assuming, because that's a big part of issues in marriages. We assume too much, and so if I'm gonna be going through this marriage assuming, and then it's destined to not survive because I'm assuming, and then I'm going to start accusing. You see what I'm saying? Everything leads to the next place.
When we start assuming in our mind, it's amazing what the mind, you can say, he can say one little thing. And next thing you know, you have had this whole conversation
in your head
in like 30 seconds.
Baby.
And then next thing you know, you mad at him.
Yeah, because he's gonna definitely feel the brunt of what you thought.
So I will say just a little look. My little 2 cents in this little piece is men. Don't let your wife assume. Let her tell her what you want. Tell her what's up, so that way you don't give no room.
Because we communicate. We the talkers. They pretty much real silent. We're the talkers. We like communicating. So it's I don't know. It's just difficult for men to communicate like women.
Yes,
and vice versa. Because we like to talk. It's okay.
Well, that's one of the inherent differences. That we have to understand, that those differences start to divide us. Men typically are less talkative than women. it's given in the study. It was proven that, you know,
Christmas.
women use about 5,000 words a day on a normal day. We probably fall around the 50 to 100 range, you know, because, you know, when I see somebody that go, "What's up?" We done had a whole conversation.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes.
we already, the kids good, the job good, I got gas in the car, you know, I ain't got no health issues, all that mess. That was it.
Yeah.
Now,
More detail.
yeah,
With more detail.
but here's the thing: those inherent differences, Dr. Tobias, you know, the pink and blue syndrome,
Oh,
you
boy,
know,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
um, and
I know.
and I think the biggest issue for men is that while we don't use many words, I think one of the downfalls is that in our use of few words, we're not very intentional in making sure that we're speaking to be understood.
Yeah. That's good.
That sometimes we'll say it, and we'll say it as a demand.
Yeah.
And to her, demands are, once again, not
Yeah.
showing love. So it
Yeah.
never registered to her, even though I said it to her. Case in point, I don't sugar on my grits. I don't like salt. So when she cooked grits, because of the way I said that, and the way even though I communicated to her, what? I don't like sugar. I like sugar, I don't want salt.
Mm-hmm.
Every time she give me the grits, it's gonna be what you want on your grits. Because what I said didn't register because how I communicated it to her.
Mm-hmm.
I gave her the information, but the information alone is not enough. And so we have to weigh those things when we're communicating. We have to speak to communicate knowledge about ourselves, and we have to listen to receive knowledge about the person that's talking to us. And I think in a marriage relationship, a lot of times we really, because, you know, I'm not making excuses, but life is hurried a lot of times.
Yes.
And sometimes we say things in passing that we really need to take a slow down moment and say, "Babe, I really want you to hear my heart. I like sugar on my grits. I know you was raised with salt, pepper, cheese, red eye gravy, whatever you want, honey on your grits. That's fine. To you, it may be a cardinal sin to put sugar on your grits. I'm your man. I'm flawed. I like sugar on my grits. You ain't got to ask me if I want sugar on my grits.
And I don't.
You ain't got to try to tell me this is a better way to make grits. All you're going to do is make me feel like, okay, she made these special grits. I still need sugar on my grits. Now, she mad because I took her special recipe and put sugar on it. When we know from just, but still. That's not our dilemma anyway.
That ain't our dilemma, but I already know he likes sugar on them grits.
It's just one thing that we had to learn through the process of time and see how we communicate sometimes. Man, sometimes we really do a poor job of communicating, whether it's a lot of words or a few words. And we just have to be careful. We have to know. Matter of fact, we counsel. We do premarital counseling for a program called Together in Texas that gives premarital counseling, and it forces the couple to bypass the 3-day waiting period. They get their marriage license pretty much for free. They don't have to file, pay the fee for filing the marriage license. But what the state of Texas spends, listen to this, the state of Texas spends $8.5 million a year on family law issues.
Wow.
And so they saw that if they can get people to get some of the basis of marriage down before they got married, it would save some money.
Save marriage.
But it also save marriage.
And save marriages.
Right. We participated. And out of the 5 issues cited as areas that they have to cover, we have to cover in our training was communication. Yeah. Communication is up at the top because, you know, one of the principles of communication is we speak to be heard and understood.
Right.
And we listen to understand and receive.
Wow. Wow.
You know, I think James 1:19 says, Dibboleth, be slow to speak, quick to hear, slow to anger. Slow to speak, quick to hear, slow to anger. And we got the slow, quick.
We got them all mixed up. We put anger first.
We get quick to get angry. We slow to listen.
And we quick to speak. Yeah.
I mean, so one of the principles I think, so we had a marriage session not too long ago, and there's so many different ways to communicate. Particularly one thing you have to decide, number one, what you want to say.
Yeah.
How you want to say it. And is this the appropriate time to say it?
Yeah.
Number one, is it going to be any value in it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, because
Yeah.
I've said some things in public I should have just kept my mouth shut. And now it's not that she didn't receive it or didn't want to receive it, but because where I said it, ooh, that was a long, quiet ride home.
Look, Lolly, with the face out the window.
Yeah. I couldn't even get apple pie from Whataburger, and that's what she loved. It's done. So we just have to be mindful of that. The communication is important, but it's
Yes.
not just about me saying what I want to say.
Right.
Our speech what should edify, build up each other.
Edify.
Okay.
So that's what we're looking for in communicating. We're looking to understand each other,
Yeah.
and to be understood. You know, I just don't want to win an argument. I mean, you know, you get your macho or you get your pride up. Say, I want to win. Okay, you won the argument, but look how badly you bruised your spouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, look how you belittled them with words.
And again, we speaking about being selfless.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that really matters.
Question. Do you, okay, so, okay, well, since you guys brought that up, do you all teach about the 5 love languages? I mean, how,
Absolutely.
what is your love language?
Oh, we know.
We know our love language, girl.
Hers is quality time and physical touch.
Uh-huh.
Hers is acts of service and
Okay.
quality time.
Acts of service and quality time. Okay.
And so, you know, that was an eye opener for me, because even though those are the major languages, it's important for me to understand that also in her quality time, she likes to receive gifts. So in order to create a doorway for quality time, you know, if I may bring home so you know, not, I mean, may not be a may not be a a coach
A coach bag.
you know, although I have done that, but sometimes just, you know, the little bag of chocolate almonds or a single roll.
Yes.
Just to open the door to quality conversation.
Yes.
I was thinking about you today.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes what happens is in communicating, we forget that there are other means, there are nonverbal means of communication.
Yes.
So I'm glad you brought that up. There are nonverbal means of communication that sometimes we just get wrong. And I tell our school children all the time, get the easy ones right.
Yeah.
When all you gotta do is dress out in PE and participate. How you get a D in PE and physical education? How does that happen? All you gotta do is dress out and participate. You ain't got to be the star. You ain't got to win a scholarship. You just dress out and participate. No, so get the easy ones right. I know what she like. You know, the Bible tells us to deal with our wives according to knowledge. That means I have to be a scientist as it relates. Yeah, that word in the Greek, knowledge. Yeah. I got to learn things about her. Yes. That are exclusive to her and I. And so sometimes the nonverbal means of communication are helpful when you don't do well at communicating verbally, because it can open a doorway, a doorway of intimacy. And I know sometimes we only focus on physical intimacy, but there's emotional intimacy in the marriage relationship. When I know that I can come to you and share some of the things that I may not be able to share with some of my closest man friends. I shouldn't have secrets in my life outside of her. This ought to be the person I'll be able to share my most intimate secrets with. And part of that is communicating. And I know sometimes as men, we don't want to make it seem like we scared, or we nervous about the future, or we don't have a plan. But those are awesome ways of creating intimacy emotionally by communicating with her. You know, but like the other night, I just told her, hey, I don't know what's going on. I don't feel well right now. And it opened the opportunity for us to talk what was going on in my body, which turned out not to be a physical thing. It was a spiritual attack of affliction, but she prayed that thing off of me. Yeah. Now that was a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful moment, it's a beautiful part of our relationship. But if I never share that,
you wouldn't.
We would never come to that. And so communication, I mean, it's really key. And I'm not saying, and my thing is a lot of times, I am a extroverted introvert. Okay. So it doesn't take a lot of talking for me. You know, if I'm with you, I'm with you. We ain't got to talk all day, every day. I'm down. That's just me.
Yeah.
I have to know what she needs, particularly as we talk about love languages. I need to affirm that through quality time and just share it with her, sharing my heart as much as I can through verbal and nonverbal means. But I got to communicate.
Yeah.
And we got to talk about stuff, you know, because, you know, one of the worst things, you know, worst thing is, you know, you go out in public and somebody else is talking about something in your marriage that you didn't even talk to your spouse about.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, to me, that's betrayal.
Yeah, like, wait a minute, how you know that? And I don't even know.
Girl, I heard y'all finna get a new TV. TV. Hey, what we get a new TV for? So you know, once again, you know, communication is so important. Not only about the inside the relationship, but I don't know if it's in here or not. But anyway, what we call about communicating in our finances. You know, a lot of things, and one of the number 2 things on the list that cause marriage is money, because we don't communicate. I mean, we don't communicate. Financially, we don't communicate, and so it's just, you know, it's just needed that we and you know, we have to be accountable to each other. So, you know, when I'm not saying enough or leaving, you gotta be willing to kind of nudge and say, hey, what's going on? How are you? What's going on with you? How's your love tank? Where you at?
Yeah, that tank is important, girl.
Mm-hmm.
That tank is important. Keep my tank filled, please, because that keeps the enemy out of your relationship. Because if you're not getting it at home, you're gonna be searching for it elsewhere.
Yes. Yes.
You know, and so that tank has to always be filled to capacity. To capacity.
Well, and
no slacking.
I'm glad you said it, but not only that too. If you're not intentionally searching for it, it may be searching for you, and you unintentionally, because you're not aware what's going on in your communication home. You unintentionally fall for it, but you don't fall for it. You give into it because you're not being intentional at home.
Gotcha.
So it's really really important, because once again, marriage is a great blessing. It is a spiritual gift. It's given by God. So there's a spiritual enemy.
Yes.
Who hard against it.
Yes.
And a lot of times that's really how the enemy wedges division in the marriage relationship is through our words. I mean, because sometimes people say, well, I just had to say that. I would have said, I would have just exploded if I said, I ain't never seen nobody yet who blew up because they didn't say something. I ain't never seen nobody combust because you couldn't say something. I haven't seen it yet. I ain't lived a whole lot of years. About 56, but in my 56 years, I ain't never seen somebody burst into flames or blow apart because they couldn't say something.
That was only on Looney Tunes, you know that.
Well, I guess so, because I ain't sitting here. So we can be careful with our words.
Yeah.
We choose them wisely. We choose the tone we say them with. We choose, the timing.
Yeah.
It may not be the best time. And I know a lot of people say, Ephesians 4:20, let the sun go down on your wrath. Okay, I understand that. That means you have to resolve not to stew in your anger and resolve to be willing to deal with the issue. It does not mean fight all night because I can't go. I just gotta say, no, it doesn't mean that. It means operate in wisdom. And don't let the devil have a foothold, because you can say so much until you create an unnecessary wedge that just further pushes you apart. So
I will say this. One of the things that I used to say a lot, and I tell my children this now, is it's not always what you say, but it's how you say it. Amen. And then you just put another little spin on it, and it's also where you say it and when you say it. You have to take all of those kind of things into consideration, because I can say for me, it would be like, something would come into my mind, and I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, I need to tell such and such this, because if I don't go ahead and tell him, I'm gonna forget. And so, but then it's like, I don't recall that conversation. And it's like, well, remember I told you, but why would you tell me then? You know what I'm saying?
Right,
So
right,
it's
right.
kind of like, okay, you need to be conscientious
Mhm.
of not only what you say,
Mhm.
how you say it, where you say it, and
Mhm.
when you say it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Sometimes that other person's not ready to receive. So
Exactly.
you have to be discerning of that.
Yes. And that was one of the things that even my dad, he said, he was like, sometimes you may think it's something vital,
Mhm. Mhm.
but you might better just marinate on it a little bit.
Yep. Yep.
Because when
Yep.
you find out, when you think about it, and then you give you, because he was like, you can't take those words back.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow,
So
yeah.
maybe you need to just keep your mouth shut and think about it for a minute.
Mhm.
And then when you realize, wait a minute, it wasn't even as big of an issue. But
Right.
if it needs to be discussed, then discuss it.
Sure. Sure.
But then you're in a better place. The other person is in a better place. So now you can both talk about it in a much calmer.
Mhm.
You can see it more clearly than in
Mhm.
trying to talk about it in the heat of the moment. Because
Well,
if you talk about it in the heat of the moment, ooh,
Yeah.
yes.
that's
Yes.
That's one of the things I've started doing, Holly. If we're having a discussion that we're both not agreeing on, and we have to, sometimes just walk away. But when I come back, I say, okay, listen, can we just agree to discuss it without bringing in anger emotions and all of these things? Can we
Mhm.
talk about it?
Too much energy.
Yes.
Too much.
Yeah, because if you just calm the situation, you're able to articulate a little bit better, and you're
Mhm.
able to hear and to listen to each other a little bit better. Slow it down,
Mhm.
because if you're racing and you're getting more and more frustrated and angry, then it's never going to resolve anything. It never resolves it. Slow it down and say, look, can we talk, and let's agree
Mhm.
not to blow up. Let's agree not to demean each other. Let's agree. We got to agree on some things
Mhm.
before this conversation goes any further.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. Anything else on communication?
One last thing, we just have to be careful also that when we communicate, we choose to um, reveal how we feel
Right.
rather than casting judgment.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That's a real good one.
Because I can be very accusatory.
Yeah.
And I'm really just trying to tell you how I feel, but I can be very accusatory.
In doing it.
You know, I have to say things like, when you said that, that made me feel.
Yeah. Say it like that,
You know,
instead of saying you always.
You
when
always.
this,
Gotcha.
when this happened, this is how it made me feel.
Yeah.
Rather than
I
saying,
feel.
yeah,
I feel statement.
you embarrassed me in public. Well, what did I do? I never forget some friends of ours were sharing, and they were saying that because of the difficulty sometimes of communicating with each other in public, they have a safe word.
Oh,
So if one goes too far, they go like blueberry, blueberry, blueberry. So they know when I say blueberry,
you
we're
gone too
going too
far.
far.
That's your tap out. That's your tap out.
That's a safe
That's
word.
enough.
You
Okay,
need to,
let's stop it down.
we talk
Yes.
to y'all later. Bye.
Uh-huh.
Because
Uh-huh.
I done said blueberry, it's time to go.
Have a safe word.
So, be mindful of that.
I like that. I like so have a
A safe word. Yeah. To
Mhm,
say,
mhm,
okay, I'm about to lose it here. Let's not take this any further. Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
And so,
I do that.
what was that? We came up with one, didn't we?
No, not for that. We
Oh,
came up with
okay.
one for something else.
Okay.
Because we said, we pretty much
Because we really liked the
we've gone,
idea,
yeah.
and so we
Uh-huh.
said we need to come up with a safe word. So
Uh-huh.
yes, but I can't remember what it was. Did we?
Okay.
Okay. Oh, we did.
You
I
all
came up
able
with a
to
signal
look,
for
y'all are
something
able to
else.
read
Oh
each
no,
other.
we came up with see, stop. No, but now we came up with a signal for something else.
Okay.
Look, I remember that signal. Anyway, go ahead. Ooh, ooh. I say, oh, even if you're a preacher, baby, put the signal up. I say, all right, then. I mean, you got to cut. Let's go.
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, that leads into our next topic of due benevolence.
There you go. It is due.
gonna let y'all talk because I'm learning. I'm learning, and that's why I said I know God is setting the sister up for some stuff. But at the same token, my main concern is I want to, because I said whenever I did this, when God told me to start doing this, I said, God, how you gonna have me to do this in the midst of my divorce? And I'm like, I can't even keep my own marriage together. How am I gonna save somebody else's marriage? And he's like, because you understand and you have compassion. So now you have a desire that no one else will go through what you went through. And that your children, nobody else's children will go through that breaking. So, but anyway, we're gonna go on to this next one. Do benevolence.
Benevolence though puts me in the mind. Well, when I think about benevolence, I think about, and I told you his love language is acts of kindness.
Yes.
So that's pretty much what benevolence is: being kind to each other, showing love to each other. And one of the things I usually do, because I know he's usually at work. I'll ask him, maybe, is there anything you need me to do for you today? And he'll say, maybe go pick up my clothes from the cleaners or whatever. Acts of kind, those kind of things that you just do not to get back, because you love an individual. And so benevolence is just simply giving.
Yes.
Giving the gift of love, giving the gift of service, just being there for each other.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. Well, you skating. You skimming on the outside.
Okay. Go ahead.
Now, am I missing this? This do benevolence is kind of King James. It's kind of King James.
But no, it's talking about the need for sexual relations.
Sexual intimacy. Okay, I didn't want to be off because you know how it is. I just wanted to make sure we didn't communicate the wrong thing.
But I'm glad that she said that, because so many people automatically jump to the sexual part. Okay. And one of the things
like somebody right here.
No. I just want to make sure that when I started talking, she took care of that other part. I need to deal with that part.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, and one thing,
but I did say loving each other and
yes.
But you kind of skating around. Be open.
Okay. I'm sorry.
So one of the things I never forget, we were at I had gone to a marriage retreat many years ago when I was married, and the lady, she said, ladies, you need to know your husband's number. And we were like, number? What number? They got a number? She's like, the number of days that your husband can go without sex, without he start acting crazy. And I was like, all of us were like, that there's such a thing.
There is such a thing.
And so when I started paying attention, I was like, oh, there is a number. So, and so in most cases, I'm gonna say in most cases, and there's research and studies out there that show that the women need more of the physical, the emotional, like I said, the love, knowing that love language, that touch, that feel, what have you. Whereas, it started in the morning. It started in the morning. It started on Sunday. And so, so it's not like you just say, come here, woman, caveman mentality. But that comes with that due benevolence. When you were talking about Pastor Gwen, just showing love to one another, because it's easy, because this is for us. It's like if you just show us that you love us and that it's not just about sex, we'll do pretty much whatever you want. Most of us. Well, excuse me. Yeah, I can't. I don't know. Let me show you.
Yeah, everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody's different.
Okay, go ahead, Pastor.
And I was just creating the doorway. But when we talk about intimacy in marriage counseling, we cover the full gamut.
Yes.
Because intimacy, we use a play on the word into me see. Into me see. Do you really see into me? At the deepest level, to where you know what it takes to be intimate with me physically, sexually, emotionally, spiritual, finance. We talk about financial intimacy.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about that because sometimes there's some infidelity in finances that will cause a woman to shut down on the sexual side. You know, if you know, once again, you know, for women, it is not only the physical touch, but it is the emotional connectivity. And
The
to kind of tie
security.
into what, yeah, and to tie into what, you know, what you said. Men are microwaves, women are crock pots. We got to learn that, you know. One of my favorite apostles, Apostle Harold Rogers says, you know, you don't just come home, after a long day at work, you ain't said nothing till then you like old hog, you're gonna call up in the bed, weep like an old hog. No, bro, you got some work to do, man. You ain't spoke to this woman all day. You ain't sent her a text message. You ain't called her. You know, when you get home, you ain't rub her feet, rub her back. You ain't asked her nothing. But you want to get up in the bed and root like old hog when, you know, you have not created an environment of intimacy. And so I have a mathematical formula that I use to help people create intimacy in marriage. People think about intimacy in marriage. Love plus affection.
Wait a minute. Love plus what?
Affection
Uh-huh.
plus attention equals intimacy. Love plus affection plus attention equals intimacy. Because like you said, when a woman knows that she's loved, and when I'm being affected, because see, once again, affection starts, like you said, 2 days ahead of time. you know, affection is the environment. Sex is just the event.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And a lot of people want to go to the event after having created the wrong environment.
That's good right there.
It is
You
good.
know, if I'm going to a football game, I already know who I'm pulling for. I already know, what I'm expecting each player to do. I already know what I'm gonna have, 2 hot dogs or not. I already know that in my mind because I created this environment in my mind. Oh yeah, we gonna every time. I never forget. We went to the NBA Finals when the Rockets were playing Orlando, and it was 2 guys sitting next to us, and they promised themselves every time the Rockets made a 3-pointer, they was gonna buy beers. Oh my goodness, these brothers was holding up before halftime because the Rockets was killing it that night. But they enjoyed the event because they created the environment. They came to have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So as those of us that are engaged in marriage, we got to create the environment first.
Yes, that's the opposite.
Okay. And I can't tell you, there is glory in the bedroom. Can I just say, because it's going to be honest, there's a glory when you,
There's
number
a glory.
one,
There's a glory.
when you're honoring God, when you're honoring your mate. Solomon said, oh my goodness.
You get slain for real, sister.
Solomon said, come my feet.
I'm slain for real.
We have to have those things in place. So she's got to know she's loved. I got to be affectionate toward her, and I got to pay her attention.
Amen.
Yes.
And vice versa.
You have to compliment her. You have to look at her. And as she says, marriage has seasons. Things change about us.
Yes.
There are some things medically that can happen that can change things. You got to be sensitive to that.
Yes.
You got to know that. You got to pay attention to that. I'll never forget. And I like just using illustrations and stuff. But one of my favorite sitcoms for a while about marriage was Everybody Loves Raymond, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
On this particular episode, Raymond, and why can't I remember his wife's name?
I can't remember her name.
Anyway, him and his wife were having some intimacy issues. And so she gave him some pointers, if you will. And Deborah, yeah. And so the next day he was like, "What? You mean I've been doing it wrong all this time?" Well, yeah, pretty much. You've been doing what you want to do.
Not what I like.
And I've just been
going
here.
along with it. Mm-hmm.
Right. So when it comes to this, I think, biblically, when we talk about due benevolence, or if you will, sexual intimacy, number one, we have a responsibility to create the environment of love, whether it's responsibility of being affectionate, whether it's a back rub, a hello kiss, you know, a small talk, whatever it is, before we can expect to get to the event. The environment's got to be created. And I think it's a beautiful part of marriage. Number one, it is a safeguard in the marriage relationship. It's a gift, number one, not just for the procreation of family and all that stuff, multiplying the godly legacy when all that comes into play, but it's a beautiful gift given by God to be enjoyed at such a level where we can honestly enjoy that gift before God and in His presence. And so I know sometimes people say, well, you know, what kind of music y'all listen to when y'all into? Well, you know, I can listen to whatever I want to, but I don't have a problem listening to gospel music, you know, worship music. Because it ain't like if I play Luther, God close his eyes, right? So I'm honoring God. And I have to believe that God takes pleasure in me taking pleasure in my wife.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, when we approach it like that, I think sometimes we number one, we're too clinically inclined to be sensitive to each other's needs. And so, you know, we just have to understand it. We have to understand that sometimes, you know, seasons of life once again affects things. You know, when you're fatigued, when you're worried, when you're stressed out, that affects some things. And we have to be number one sensitive to that. And once again, communication is a big part of that. You know, you can always go back to communication. It's a big part of that because you know, you think she's just being mean. Well, she's having pain in her body. You know, she's dealing with some
changes, or vice versa. You know.
You know, you think he less than a man or he's impotent because, okay, well, he's stressed out. You know, naturally he can't perform, but he's not communicating that to you.
Right.
So you got to get to that place.
Yeah.
And so when we understand that, it's not, once again, we leave the kingdom of selfishness. We leave the kingdom of self. You know, because, you know, let's face it, early in, you know, it was like, okay, I want to, and I really don't need to know why you don't. I want, I want to.
Okay.
And then you wonder why she don't. Well, you know, because you have to get to that point of being selfish. So,
and
it's very needed.
And I was gonna say, you know, I'm not but 48, so but one of the things I will say is that the church I don't think, and this is just based on from what I've been told. Don't know. I'm not. I wasn't there. That those types of things you didn't discuss.
No.
You didn't, you know, my grandparents, I mean, I don't know if my parents did. My parents are pretty good communicators, you know, with each other. They didn't do a whole lot of fussing and arguing. They did everything in the room. They talked in the room. They didn't do all that in front of us.
Yeah.
If there was an issue, we could tell from Daddy's facial expression and Mama's walk. That's how we knew.
Okay.
Wow.
There was gonna be some intense fellowship, and we be listening, trying to like what they talk about. But whenever they came out that room, they was good. They was good. And so, you know, but most couples don't. They were not, especially like in the church. Jesus gonna work it out. No, y'all need to talk. Y'all need to communicate. You need to make sure that you and I'm glad that you went back to, you know, about that communication, because if you're hurting, you need to, how is he gonna know you're hurting if you don't say? And I mean, there are some things I can share because I was married. Was when I had a tumor. You know, if I hadn't said, wait, hold on, wait, bro, slow, something ain't right. Find out. You know, I ended up going to the doctor and found out that I had a tumor. And had I not communicated that, then he would have thought,
what's
wrong with you? You know? So, you know, so that like you were saying, you know, there are things that you have to your body changes. And when you were talking about, you know, I think you alluded to it, Pastor Taylor, that, you know, you have to have knowledge. You know, Paul says, you know, we have to, you know, that husbands, you're supposed to seek knowledge about your wife. You know, you're supposed to know. You're supposed to learn about her body and learn. And and wives, you know, we have to know things about our husbands because you know, if he's stressed, then you know, sometimes that might help him, but sometimes the stress factor is I don't need to do that right there. I need you to talk to me. I need you to, you know, give me a massage, or I need you to rub my head, or I need you to just let me pour out to you. I need you to just listen and don't judge me. And I know as a former wife, sometimes I was not always open to that. And I would have to go back and apologize because I was like, you know, you were trying to share something different with me, and it would be never mind. And then I'm like, well, hun, I'm sorry. What? No, never mind. I don't want to talk right now. And so, you know, so those are the kind of things when you were saying that it's. Hold on, let me go back to what you said. I want to make sure I quote it right. You said love plus affection plus attention equals intimacy. It was not that I didn't love him. It wasn't that I didn't give him affection. It was that I didn't give him my attention. And we as women, and I don't know, but having 3 little children, working full time, going to school, you know what I'm saying? It was kind of like, bro,
where does he fit in?
where do you fit in? And those times where he would say,
just go ahead and read my name.
He would say, Holly, you know, it's been 3 weeks. And I was like, for real? And he was like, yeah, 3 weeks, 2 days, and 5.
Yes, they count them, girl. Look, that's what the numbers. That's what the numbers are. They count them.
So
they got numbers.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. I mean, because in my mind, I'm just doing life. You know, I'm just going about, you know, whatever. And that's that thing about you having to, not only husbands being knowing for their wives, but wives having to know their husband. That's not going back to being conscientious and realizing that, wait a minute, hold on. I give them more. And you know, that, you know, the love is there, but then the affection and the attention is not. And so, especially, you know, especially whenever we as wives have children, or
all those multiple responsibilities.
Exactly. And so, you know, the husband is like, okay, you over there, you spending all this time with the kids, and you know,
forgetting all about me, huh? Look, when I am your first priority,
you know,
in the bed.
That's when you need to really talk and communicate and come up with a plan, come up with a strategy that would alleviate so much of that on you. Let's work together so that we can get them to bed early. And we can play.
Exactly. We can play.
We can play. We go wrestle like Pastor Phillips said. We can wrestle. We go wrestle. Yeah.
Another component of that as well. Here's the thing I think is very important. Having shared with a couple sometime back, each person in the marriage wants to feel equally pursued. That although it's great when a man can ask and pretty much always get a yes, that's not always what he's looking for. He's sometimes looking for you to ask. So he can give a yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's the way you do it. That's the signal.
Okay, come on.
So that's equally important, particularly as men begin to cross that 40-year-old mark. They want to see themselves as still being desirable.
Yes.
And women too.
So if the only way we're engaged, if I'm the one asking, I'm the one planning, I'm the one seeking, number one, if you start to feel like, okay, am I not, attractive anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Are you just feeling sorry for me? I don't want that. I want to be attractive. I want to be, desired. And so I think that's equally important across the spectrum of the seasons of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be mindful of that because, let's face it, in every relationship, you have one that may be more given to that than the other. Well, basically, in general principle, it's men.
Yeah.
But just like, there's always one person that, even though women talk more than men, sometimes in a marriage relationship, one may be the talker, one may not be the talker. It may be on either side. One may be the spender, one's the saver.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sexual side, one may be the one pursued, and the other one may be the pursuer. So, but that has to balance out at some point,
Mm-hmm.
where it doesn't look like, well,
One-sided.
I'm always asking,
One-sided. Yeah.
or do you ever really desire me as I desire you? What happened to those times? So we have to be mindful of those things, particularly as years and seasons move on.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to learn it.
Can I ask you a question though?
Mhm.
How do you when you deal with those things and like you were talking about the seasons, like when you're tired, how do you, I mean, I know that comes back with that communication piece, but if okay, like I said, I'm 48 and so it's kind of like, you take it, you got to make sure, look, baby, let's go get you some vitamins.
Sure. Well,
But I mean, but how do you address those types of things? Even for like those of us who are waiting to do our second marriage or whatever. And in those, because it's like sometimes you run into people who are still, that vitality is there. Yes. And then other people like, I just want your companionship.
Wow. Yeah.
How do you, but yet you're good in you're good in every aspect except for that part.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you, I mean, I'm saying, I'm not gonna lie, I don't have nobody, so but I'm just saying for
Sure, I understand.
but I'm asking because these are some of the things that, in talking with people that have come up. So I'm like, well, how do you even address those types of things?
Well, I think it begins with a healthy understanding of the uniqueness and exclusivity of the marriage relationship. Number one, it's unique in that one is embraced in such a way that the intimacy that they need is met. Then they need to be open to sharing at another level of intimacy with the other individual. That in itself brings, number one, a fulfillment rather than a sense of obligation. Because anything we do out, that's why I said this kind of King James do benevolent. It just makes me feel like, okay, well, you got to do this.
You owe me.
Time for the home. Oh Lord, no. So when we create that at high level and high priority of intimacy, if in your level of only needing companionship, you see that individual really, really pouring into you to give you that, it will open the doorway. But number one, you to be emotionally open to it. If there are physical issues, we need to be aware of that and not just say, well, you just got to accept me for me. Well, no, that's things we can do. We can be more intentional about whether or not we're taking care of our bodies physically, whether there's a medical issue,
right.
Whether or not my day is so busy that I don't have time for that to be an option. Sometimes we can, like I said, be cluttered. I think, one thing we do, okay, so, once again, funny movie, lady, she's ironing clothes, she's taking care of the kids, she's working a second job, she's doing that, and the guy comes in, plop down on the couch, I'm like, well, we don't even be intimate anymore. She said, well, where am I going to fit it in? Well, you just come on here right now while I'm ironing these clothes. So at that point, he realized, okay,
yeah,
why is she doing everything? I come in, let me do X, Y, Z. Give her, an hour or so to in a mindset after being in a home she's doing. And then we both have a place of sharing because number one, when she sees I'm willing, because once again, we never talked about it, but
create that place.
In a marriage relationship, we shouldn't focus on so much on task or responsibilities. We should focus on roles. So if my role as a husband, provider, leader, is that, then whatever I need to do to lead my wife into a place where we can be intimate, whether it's washing the dishes, whether it's making sure that she feels secure, I do that so that we can have that place of intimacy, and it's not a constant drain on her. I'm not imposing on her at the same time. So whatever needs to happen, we just need to be willing to understand that there are going to be some there are yin and yang. Some people are more active and more progressive and ready to level attitudes high, and others are lower. But we get to the place where we understand what those needs are, and we can balance.
Okay. So balance, the give and
take. It is. Once again, if we can take if we can take selfishness out of it, we'll be okay.
Gotcha.
That's the main part of it. All situations, the selfishness.
Okay. Cool. Okay. All right. We got 2 more areas. This one is a biggie, I think. Is submitting to each other. Because they're I keep hearing, I'm a man, you're supposed to follow me, you're supposed to submit to me. Well, are you submitted to God?
I'll surely tell you.
God
is a God of order.
I'm like, if you submit to God and you submit to authority, bro, I can truly say, I don't have a submission issue. If you're submitted and you're doing, because everybody say, oh, wives submit to your husbands. But then I'm like, did you go down to that next verse? It said we're supposed to submit one to another.
Right.
And so, so I get that a lot as a single woman. They're like, you don't know how to submit. Do you know how to submit to God?
Yes.
If you submit to God and you do what you're supposed to do,
yes,
I don't have a problem with submitting to you.
I'm telling you, God is a God of order.
I'm sorry. Let me push. Let me let y'all before I get myself into trouble.
Well, I think that's a big issue, simply because we don't understand what submission is. Submission is not dictatorship.
Right.
Submission is not disrespect.
Right.
Submission is my mission becoming the sub-mission, the mission underneath.
Selflessness. We back to that. Yes.
So for the man, I submit to God. My mission is subject to God's mission for me. And so the same thing for the wife. So once again, we mutually submit to each other. We mutually submit to God, so that the priority for the marriage relationship can be honored. One of the biggest issues I have is that, once again, we like the places of honor, but we like them without accountability. And so Bible says, God said, not Adam, God said, it is not good for man to be alone.
Yeah, God made that.
I will make a help meet for him. So in order for Adam to be submitted to God and to help Adam in his submission, God gave him Eve.
Okay.
And so everything that Eve brought into the equation, a need for protection, a need for provision, all those things that God created Adam for, Eve is in that place now, so that he can submit to that and be accountable for it. Because if he didn't do what he was submitted to God to do, she would be the first to feel the impact of that. And so there's mutual submission and mutual accountability. because now Eve would be able to help complement Adam in his providing, protecting, because it would be an alignment that will allow him to fulfill the mission that God gave him. And it's not a lesser than, because that role of helper is a role of divinity, because Holy Spirit is called helper.
Yes.
And so it's important for us to understand, if we're going to, number one, we're going to expect submission to work. And I try to frame this differently, because sometimes we say, well, if we're going to expect submission, we got to be submitted. No, without you being submitted, submission doesn't work. It will not. If I'm not submitted, it will not work. Now I can lord over people, and I can intimidate people to where I can get them to do what I think they ought to do. But that's not submission. Because if the helper cannot complete the mission that they're created for, then the priority and order that God created is disrupted. She was created to provide help that would fulfill the total order of submission.
Wow.
Which is one of the gifts. If you see that's actually one of the gifts mentioned, excuse me, in the spiritual gift. Gift of helps.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're here for. We're here to undergird and to uplift and to encourage and to, just be.
Well, my wife is the greatest reminder that I need to be accountable that I could have. I'll never forget, one man told me, he said I was younger then. He said, Taylor, you know what? I said, yes, sir. He said, you see, and I was that person. I'm not an avid landscaper or a person that keeps up my yard. I just, grass is grass. I hate grass. I grew up cutting the grass. I got old enough, I could barely push the lawnmower. I burnt my foot. I was outside mowing the yard barefoot because I didn't want to do it. So the lawnmower quit. And so I go to step on the lawnmower to hold it down to start it, and put my foot right on the high muff. I burned my foot cutting the lawn. I got hit in the leg with something. I hate it. I hate yard work. I hate it with a passion. I like looking at a beautiful yard, but I don't want to be the one out there pulling weeds and cutting edge. It just don't sit well with me. But an older gentleman told me one time we were doing some yard work. He said, Taylor, you see these weeds? I said, yes, sir. He said, weeds are a sign of neglect.
Yeah.
And so whenever I look at my wife and I see somewhere that there's a shortage or something that doesn't belong there,
wow,
that's the greatest place of accountability for me, because I know my mission, my submission to God is that I protect, provide, I cover. So when I see neglect there, when I see weeds, I know I ain't done what I'm supposed to. And so all of that plays into being submitted to God and submitting to each other. It's a place of submission and a place of accountability to fulfill the overall order of submission, not just the place that we want to be recognized for without responsibility or accountability. It's the overall order that matters.
Wow, that's good. That's real good.
And we work hard to submit to each other. We really work hard to submit to each other, to serve each other,
and it's an ongoing
think
thing,
of each other. To hear, because sometimes people will assume that, well, you have it all together. No. Sometimes I'm being honest. I don't know the answer. I want to hear what you have to say, because I don't even know where to start. So I have to be willing to submit to her help. And to receive that as a gift from God, because God, once again, God gave me that divine help. So it's being aware of what submission really is in the overall picture of God's order and fulfilling his mission for the marriage relationship. That's what counts. We're submitted to him, we'll be all right.
Okay, great. Okay. Anything else on submission? We good? Okay.
We good.
That was good. Okay. All right. Last area is the purity of marriage. And I looked at like commitment, the covenant, compassion, and the covering. um, in those four areas, just the purity of marriage from those four perspectives, and you kind of hit on all of these already, but how does all of that wrap up in just respecting and honoring the purity of marriage? Did that make
I'll
sense?
start with I'll start with we have some good friends. Their marriage ministry is called Remembering the Covenant.
Yeah.
And I'll start with covenant because honestly, it encompasses just about everything we need.
Yeah.
Because when we're in covenant is the place of not only prosperity, covenant is the place of protection.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why people don't respect marriage because they really don't understand marriage is a covenant, which is a lifelong, unbreakable relationship based on principles that cannot fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to digress, but the reason why David could be so confident that he was going to beat Goliath, and this may be a little character for you guys, but the reason why David was so confident that he could beat Goliath is that when Goliath was so much bigger than he was, David walked up to Goliath and saw that he was uncircumcised.
Mm.
He knew that Goliath was not under covenant.
Wow. 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 Woo!
I just got to say it.
Wow.
He knew that David was not protected. Goliath was not protected. So David said, "Oh, you going down today, bro? I already see what you're working with. I don't mean to be off color. I already see. I can see what you ain't circumcised. I know you ain't under covenant. I don't care whether you're bigger than I am. I don't care whether you're more skilled than I am. I don't care how many people you got behind you. Listen, you going down today.
Wow.
Because I'm under covenant. I'm covered.
Mm-hmm.
And when people understand that marriage is about covenant, they understand that there's divine protection, not just prosperity. Yes, God gives us all of that because He's all encompassing. But there's divine protection, and the purity of marriage is in and of itself one of the most exclusive relationships on the human level that we can have. And in that is a definite commitment to the things that God says about marriage. Mm-hmm. I can't shift it and make it work. I can't adjust it and make it work. I can't deal with being politically correct and talk about, same-sex marriage. No, that's not what God created. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but if you are, praise the Lord.
It is what it is. Mm-hmm.
But there's protection. There's always protection under covenant. Yeah. Yeah. And what we have to understand is, once again, since marriage is a spiritual gift, it's a gift from God, divinely inspired, divinely initiated, then what God says about it works. Yeah. But we also have a spiritual enemy. So we got to be, number one, committed to each other and committed to God. Ecclesiastes 4 talks about two are better than one. And it says that a 3-4 cord is not easily broken. Why? Because God is that third cord.
Exactly.
So when we're committed to Him and we're committed to each other, hey, we can really make it. We can really make it. And covenant just signs it off, because in covenant, that's protection. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times we think boundaries are there. I just can't experience it. No, it's to keep you safe. Yes. It's to provide for you the ultimate level of human relationship at the high. So once again, it's a beautiful thing. Covering, definitely, man, you're covered under covenant. Yeah. I mean, we've got to understand that marriage is such an awesome gift from God. That's why it's under so heavy attack. Matter of fact, Scripture tells us that one of the indicators that we're entering into the last days is how marriage is treated.
Yeah.
He said they're going to be giving and giving in marriage. You see how careless people are with marriage these days? Mm-hmm. Same-sex marriage, open marriage, multiple spouse marriages. Mm-hmm. They're getting ready to do away with some stuff that will limit marriage between just two people. It's all crazy. People are. It's coming to the point where people can legally marry their pets. Yeah. Yeah. There's been a request for
Well, I
legislation.
saw the one where the brother and the sister got married, I think up in
Yeah, I
Jersey.
saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you want to marry? I asked my kid, I said, would you want to marry your brother? My daughter looked at me like, ew.
And that's the word for it. Ew.
Ew. I'm like, I don't even like him. Why would I want to marry?
Hey,
It's pretty
Yeah.
sad. It's pretty sad.
they're defiling the
Yeah.
perfect gift. Once again,
Lawlessness.
purity of marriage is number one. Not only just fidelity to each other. We need to be accountable,
Each other.
but there needs to be a
Boundaries.
fidelity between us and God and what He
Mhm.
says marriage is, and how we live that out.
Mhm.
And so I understand that only happens under covenant.
And we have to be vigilant and alert in that covenant
Mm-hmm.
so that we don't allow the enemy to come in. We don't allow him to tear up
Mhm.
what God ordained,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And one of the things we talk about too, particularly in marriage counseling, is that we need to guard our marriage.
Yes.
We need to have boundaries and fences. I tell people all the time, anything that's valuable to you, you have a security system or a protection system for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got an alarm on your car, you got an alarm on your house, all this stuff. Why? Because it's valuable to you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so the purity of marriage must be protected.
Yeah.
It must be considered valuable. So we got to have things in place to keep stuff from getting in that don't belong in.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, it just becomes another relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
It does not honor God. And I tell people all the time, particularly, we have to hold each other accountable for honoring the marriage relationship. I can't just let you fly off willy-nilly and say, well, I'm just gonna stand here and watch. No, I have a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I have to honor the sanctity of this relationship. And so I'm mindful of God's covenant because I know there's protection there. I'm mindful of God's covenant because I know there's promise. I know there's prosperity there. And so we have to uphold marriage as something sacred and protect its purity. If not, once again, we got the parachute on already. We just wait for something to happen so we can jump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm already in the mindset of, okay,
yeah, if
you do this, I'm gone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out. So yeah.
No commitment at all.
Yeah.
No
I'm
commitment.
just waiting. I'm just waiting.
Yeah.
I can't to say,
Deuces.
I tried it. You did this wrong. Deuces.
Yep.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's the world we live in.
And for some people, it ain't much. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Just in the natural, you just spent all this money. You didn't gather all these people together. You rearrange all the stuff in your life, and you gonna throw it away?
Yeah.
Over a disagreement?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
One thing I was listening, I'm not gonna say where I was listening because I'm not trying to promote anything. But she was just saying that she freed herself in that expecting people to be what she expected them to be. And her husband and her children and her, what I'm saying? And that just freed her up in that, you know what? They are who they are. And that's kind of how I came to a conclusion with a lot of things. And I freed God really has freed me from a lot of stuff, is that you love people right where they are.
Right.
You are who you are. And I like the fact that, we are to hold each other accountable. Yes. We are to hold each other accountable. But at the same token, just because you don't respond the way I think you should respond, or the way I want you to respond, does not give me the right to say, forget it. And one of the things that was shared with me was that you just have to just love people where they are. Love them for who they are. You can't make them be what you want them to be. And there's this, one of the things that my mom shared with me was, she said, out of the blue, she was home, we were home, whatever. Daddy came home from work. She's like, she doesn't know to this day. She still doesn't know. And he didn't remember. He came in and he was adamant. There's not going to be a divorce in this marriage. And divorce is not an option. And she said, okay, well, then you better act like it.
Yeah. What?
Oh my.
And she went on about her business, you know what I'm saying?
Really?
And so, so I just kind of laughed because, but the reality is when you have to make up in your mind that there, like you said at the beginning, there's no such thing as irreconcilable differences. There's no such thing. It's an issue only if you allow it to be an issue. If you respect and you honor the sanctity of marriage, and you honor the sanctity of this relationship, there is no such thing as that's the other thing that the young lady said. She was like, there are not any non-negotiables. There's nothing that her husband can do ever that can make her say, you know what, I'm done. And he was like, exactly. They were discussing it, and they were like, and it gave them the peace and the security to know, yeah, we might go through some things.
Yeah.
It might take us some time to get over this hump. But you might live on that side of the house, and I might live on that side of the house. But we are not getting a divorce, and we're gonna come together, and we're gonna talk about this thing, and we're gonna work it out. Because there, as she said, there ain't no divorce. And he made it very clear, there ain't no divorce.
All right.
We're gonna work this thing out. Come hell or high water, we're gonna work it out. And that's where we have to, like you said, just respecting and honoring the covenant. Because covenant is not a contract.
Right. That's right.
The contract is the marriage license. But the covenant is in your heart when you come together. And so, I just love how I'm gonna be going back listening to this, because of course I got to go back and, pull stuff out. But this right here was just so good to me, because as I'm listening, I'm like, oh yeah, God, I messed up with that one. So, as you know, this is not just for other people. I mean, I'm learning. I really am learning and trying to learn, because I want to make sure that, that whenever we are teaching people how to have marriage God's way. Because we have watched the world's way, we watched Hollywood way, we watched grandma way, we watched granddaddy way. We've done we've tried all these other ways. But now how about we go back to the creator, the one who created marriage. And I never forget, I was having a conversation with a very dear friend of mine. He and I grew up together, and he and I were having a conversation. And I was like, well, God is the one that created sex. He was like, no, I said, bro, I know for a fact that you was raised in church, because your family and my family.
Wait. Okay.
I say, dude, that's back in Genesis. That's like Bible 101. He's like, no, he didn't. I said, God created sex. So he said that they came together and they were to multiply.
Right.
God is the one that created marriage, and he created sex. He's like, no, he didn't. No. I said, well, who created it? I don't know, but it wasn't God.
Oh my goodness.
I said, sweetheart, I said, baby, God created sex. I said, God. I said, look at the human. I said, look at the human body.
Right.
Perfectly designed.
Right.
I said, look at the human body.
Yes.
Look at a woman's body. Look at a man's body.
Yes.
This was like, So that was so funny to me that there are really people out here who do not believe that God created sex. And I was like, God is the one that he created marriage and he created sex. I was like, and I always tell people, you know, I mean, I have to deal with this a lot. And I said, I look at sex like fire. In the fireplace, sex, I said, in the fireplace is marriage. It can cook food. It can warm you. It can provide warmth in cold times. You know, it's beneficial. But sex outside of marriage and outside of the fireplace, it destroys houses. It destroys forestry. It kills animals. It kills people's lives. It's very destructive. And they were like, "You just being so holy." I said, "Okay, whatever, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but that's what God created marriage.
Amen.
And created sex to be in marriage.
In marriage.
And he made it, look, and he said what? And it is
it's good. Amen. Bless the Lord. Hallelujah. That's well.
So, you know, I said, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And you just old fashioned. I said, no. I said, I just am determined to do this thing God's way.
That's right. Amen. Amen.
And so, you know, so I mean, but I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much. Do you have any? That's all. Unless you have anything else, I don't have anything else. Any closing words? Anything else you want to just wisdom?
Really, this was fun. This was really fun. Kind of impromptu a little bit, but it was fun.
It was good. I'm sorry. I just love watching how you guys like interact with each other. It's fun. It's fun. And, you know, after 37 years to still see, you know, because some people, you know, you like, oh, that's fake.
Oh, yeah.
But I love it whenever I see couples who show you that this is how it's supposed to be. That after, you know, some people are like, oh, well, no, it's genuine. It's genuine. It's truly, I mean, it's the fire is not out. As a matter of fact, it's growing bigger. And,
yes.
And, you know, and those are the kind of I want people to see. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, initially I hadn't planned on doing videos. I hadn't planned on sharing. I was just going to interview people and just write the nuggets and everything. But God was like, people need to see. They need to see the interaction. They need to see, you know, how couples really interact with each other. That you know, and they can have marriages the way God created it, and they need to know that it's not easy.
No,
it's not. It's not easy. It is work. Anything worth having, you have to work for it. And it takes maintenance. And like Pastor Levi said, you know, he is not the one to go out there and cut grass and pull the weeds. But the reality is that even if you don't do anything, it doesn't take anything. It doesn't take any effort for weeds to grow.
Just neglect.
It takes a lot of effort to keep it maintained.
Right.
And we can get into marriage, but it's the maintenance. And I do tell some people, you know, younger people, whatever, I'm like, look, you know, it's easy to get in a marriage. It's hard to maintain it and to stay. And because it is so easy to just walk away. And now, because here in Texas, I think it's 61 days. It's 61 days of separation. And that's just so they can make sure that the woman isn't pregnant. And I was like, 61 days? Like, you can get married and change your mind, and in 61 days you can go and find.
You can get enough,
Wow.
Yes.
A whole lot has changed since we got married, baby.
And so,
wow.
And so, you know, that's. And I said, why is it so easy?
Yeah.
And even if with common law marriage, you still have to do, I found this out, that even with a common law marriage, even though it's common law, you still have to go through the actual divorce process. To get a common law marriage or no,
separate, right?
To get it separated. And so, you know, but I just really, but like I said, I really appreciate you all. Thank you all so
Absolutely.
much.
You're
I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it. This
welcome.
was fun.
It was.
And I hope that, you know, I hope you guys got something out of it too. And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
would definitely share it with you guys because I'll upload it as soon as I can figure out how to. I'll upload it to YouTube and I'll send you guys the link. And
Okay.
you know, if you want to use it for something else, be my guest because it's you all. And I'm gonna tell you, you all gave some wonderful, wonderful golden nuggets, and I really appreciate you guys. So thank you all.
Welcome. Bless
Love
you.
you.
All right, love you
Good
guys.
honor.
All
You
right,
too.
bye bye.
Bye
Be
bye.
blessed.